There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another short, in other words, 6 pieces of vocabulary. Tonight it's from 4 different books. The first book, I will hopefully finish this book tomorrow, but I've certainly been loving every page of it. Kate Atkinson's A God in Ruins, and a couple more from that. Doolallly. I think I'd heard it before. I don't think I knew what it meant. You might know what it means. You might think that I am this. It's an informal British adjective meaning temporarily deranged or feeble-minded. Uncle's gone doolally again. Another meaning that has kind of sprung from that, just like crazy and crazy about. The softer, more metaphorical meaning is to be transported with excitement or pleasure, which I hope all of you are feeling as you watch this video. To go doolally over something. The etymology here is really interesting. It's British slang, came into English in around 1917 in the armed services. And it comes from an Urdu word meaning fever, and also from the name of a city or town near Bombay, doolallly, which had a military camp established in 1861 with a large barracks and a staging point for British troops on their way to or from India. It also had a sanatorium, so that's where the people that needed to be psychiatrically hospitalized went. So that, I think, is how it got that meaning. Doolallly, isn't that fascinating? Next is Mae West. What the heck is Sean the Book Maniac doing talking about a famous movie star of the 1920s and up until the 1970s, if you would care to subject yourself to watching Sextet? Fascinating figure of 20th century. Did you know that she was a published novelist? Has anybody read any of her novels? I would like to. I think they were reprinted by Virago Press. I think I've seen them in that edition, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Mae West is famous for sex, for her buxom figure and her skanky slut talking. She's, one of my personal heroes. Come up and see me sometime. Is that a gun in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? I gotta love Mae West. Not in her personal life. I think she wasn't a very nice person, but the things she contributed to my personal culture. Anyway, there is something named after her. Do you know what it is? Starting in the 1940s, starting in the World War II era. An inflatable life jacket. Here's a picture. Why ever would it have been nicknamed the Mae West? Because when you inflated it, all these young Americans and British soldiers, their chests started to resemble Mae West's. And she was tickled pink by this. And just to clarify, it was actually the Royal Air Force in Britain, not America. She wrote a letter to the soldier that apparently coined the term. I don't know any more details than that of whether he was the guy, but she sent a letter. And here is a portion. Are you sitting down? I have just seen that RAF flyers will have a life-saving jacket they call a Mae West because it bulges in all the right places. Well, I consider it a swell honor to have such great guys wrapped up in me. Know what I mean? Thanks, boys. Sensationally, Mae West. You go, girl. That was fabulous. A couple more from London Belongs to Me. I will also be finishing this week, sadly, because I'm enjoying it. A stirrup pump. Reference is made to one of the characters resenting the fact that he has to know how to use it. He's a night watchman. And a stirrup pump. Now, I might be the only person in the world that doesn't know what it means, because when I Googled it and looked at modern photographs, it's something that I've seen in hardware stores or whatever. It is a portable hand-operated water pump with a footrest which resembles a stirrup. And it's used to extinguish small fires. I have seen those in hardware stores in Canada or Japan or somewhere. I didn't know that's what it was. But then let's look at the word stirrup. Where does that come from? That is interesting. The Old English version of stirrup was stigrap. I don't know how you pronounced it. And as I think we all know, it's a support for the foot of a person who is mounting a horse. And it comes from another Old English word, stig or stige, which means climbing. And That goes back to the Proto-Germanic stigaz, which is where we get the word stair from. So stir and stair are very close kissing cousins. And wrap is rope, where we get rope from. So even though there is the up in stirrup, and that may be why the spelling changed from rap to rup, to include the connotation of up, because you're getting up on the horse. Rap is connected to rope. And then we got the device used for childbirth and other gay pornographic maneuvers. A stirrup cup in the 1680s was a cup of wine or other drink which was handed to a rider already on horseback. I don't know any equivalent beverage available during the filming of any gay porn episode. So moving on. Next is also from London Belongs to Me. One of the characters is deciding whether or not he will batten on a woman's love. Now, batten I'd heard of, but mostly from batten down the hatches. So the noun batten means a long, flat strip of squared timber or metal used to hold something in place or as a fastening against a wall, a batten. And then a more specific meaning, which is where batten down the hatches comes from, is one of those strips used for securing a tarp or a tarpaulin over a ship's hatchway, batten down the hatches. And there's another very similar meaning for sailboats. We won't bother with that. And then the verb is to strengthen or fasten something with battens. Batten down the hatches, the original meaning was just to do exactly that. And then the metaphorical meaning, the idiom, that is still fairly common in English. To batten down the hatches means to prepare for a difficulty or crisis. The noun batten came into English in the mid-17th century, and it was an Englished variant of baton. The nautical meaning of battening down the hatches dates from the late 18th century. Baton entered the English in the 1540s. A staff used as a weapon was the original meaning, coming from French. A stick, a walking stick, a wand. Going back to Latin, bastum, a stout staff, which probably goes back to Gaul, and then to Greek, baston, or support. The original English spelling was batoon. I don't know what the pronunciation was, but it had a double O. Next is one word from a massive history of India, which I just started reading. India, A History by John Kay. And just like we started with doolallly, I mean, everything goes back to India eventually, the Proto-Indo-European roots, when we can trace it back that far. So I think I'm going to get a lot of linguistic and etymological insight from reading this history of India. In the introduction, I'm still reading the introduction, it's like 20, 30, 40 pages. He does kind of a geographical survey of India, which was all news to me, and he talks about the Punjab region, which he says, and probably a lot of you know, but I certainly didn't know, comes from the Hindi word Punjab, meaning 5 rivers. And as soon as I read that, a light bulb went off, and I thought, Pentagon, 5, Pan, Pun, Ben. And that just gave me a etymological erection. Can I say that? I just did. So yeah, that region, 5 rivers and their tributaries, Punjab region. The word Punjab comes from the Hindi Punjab. I think I just said that. And that goes back to the Persian word panj, meaning 5. And that goes back to the Proto-Indo-European root penkwe. I don't know how that would be pronounced. Plus another word, ap, which was ab in Persian, meaning water. Let's just focus on penkwe, meaning 5. So all these words, you know a lot of them, but some of them were surprised. Finger, I never thought about finger having the 5 embedded in it, and it is. Same with fist, foist, parcheesi. I don't even remember what parcheesi means, but there you go. Pentacle, all the pen words, Pentecost, pentathlon, you know all those. Pompeii, Punjab, punch. There you go. Fist, punch. That's fascinating. I didn't notice that one in the list. There's a novel that Sarah of Hardcover Hearts has been extolling the virtues of recently. The Quincun. I don't know how you pronounce it, but that, I know 5 is in there, but I still don't know what that word means. Quinella, quintet, quintile, quintessence, quintuplet. I am just a few short chapters into The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford and really enjoying it. We'll close out this episode of In Other Words with one from there, and this is an idiom: butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. I've heard it a gazillion times, and so have you, but what does it mean? So this is what's interesting about that. I found a great web page, and I will just share. I'll put the link in the show notes, but I'm going to cover most of the points because it is a little complicated. It's one of the most misunderstood idioms in the English language. Some people think it's used to mean a person is sweet and innocent, and other people think it's used to mean that someone is a manipulator or a liar. Both meanings depending on the context or the history of the use of the expression. And what the heck does it have to do with melting butter? So originally, around the early 16th century, it was much more common than it is today, and it was used to describe somebody who had a cold, detached personality. So if you were a cold person, you could put butter in your mouth and it wouldn't melt because you were so cold. Figuratively, you were not friendly, you were detached, but literally, if you were cold, butter wouldn't melt, right? So that's easy to understand. But then as the phrase evolved, it then came to refer to people that were really prim and proper, who followed the rules of decorum regardless of their true feelings. That's related to being cold or detached, right? But as it kind of got into the prim and proper thing, you can see where it split into two almost antithetical meanings. The liar meaning, if you're phony and if you're putting on an act to fit in socially, butter wouldn't melt in your mouth. You are cold. You're insincere, you're a liar, you're a manipulator. But the other meaning from being prim and proper was the more desirable meaning, that you were sweet and innocent. You were selfless. And that at a certain stage of social history, the prim and proper thing for ladies especially to do was to act sweet and innocent. And then it became not just about acting, but actually being sweet or innocent. So you can see how the idiom butter wouldn't melt in her mouth, or his mouth, became confusing because it could mean phony, it could mean sweet, the way that association with being prim or proper, well behaved, split in two directions. So both have some truth, and both are only part of the story, so it's kind of like the word bi-weekly. Does it mean twice a week, or does it mean every second week? This idiom should be retired because nobody can agree. And that, boys and girls, is all I got for now. More later. Thanks for watching.